Knowing the various parts of a corset can help you know the difference between a good quality corset and a less than great one. Hey guys, it's Morgan with BDSM Relationships and Education. Thank you very much for checking out this video about the various parts of a corset. And if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and that way you can catch up on the 3 videos per week that I am posting now. So let's talk about the various parts that go together to make a corset, because if we know about these various parts, it's going to help us in our quest to find a good corset versus, a cheap, poorly made corset. So, and I mean this in, what is a good corset for you, and also in the overall context of quality. So let's take a look at some of the various pieces, and then in our next video, I'm going to talk about how to find a good corset and what you should avoid when buying one. And this applies whether you are looking online or in person. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the busk. So the busk is this thing in the front that does up the corset. I have one here. This is the 2 pieces of a busk, and this came from an old corset of mine that is no longer in any good condition to wear. So I pulled it apart, and I'm going to use this hardware in order to make a new corset. I was working really hard on a new corset for a while, and I got the pattern cut, and I haven't even started sewing. So we're going to work on that because this is a new project for me. I don't usually make corsets, but this is a busk. Now, a busk should be, it can come in, this is an inch wide. They can come wider or thinner, but it should be pretty stiff. So when I'm trying to bend that, I'm only getting a little bit there. So you can see that I can't fold it in half. Now, if I show you, this is my standard crappy corset, and we can see here that the busk is inside, and you can see it flopping around already. But the busk is in the corset, and you saw the other one that I couldn't bend easily. This one I can fold in half, pretty easy. So that is a cheap busk, and honestly, I'm feeling it, and it ends there. So this is only I want to say that's 1/4 of an inch. I don't even think it's 1/2 inch. Unfortunately, I don't have a measuring tape handy to measure for you guys, but that is really small. There is another bone sitting next to it, a flat steel bone. I can feel it, and even the flat steels are pretty bendy and worthless. So busks don't always have to. They generally look like this one with the little pegs. This is the style that I am wearing right now with the little pegs and that. But, and you guys have seen me wear this corset before on this side. We have some different style pegs, and then it's got some big fancy hardware on this side. So, busks can look different. And I'll show you here, this one is about the same. It's got a little bit more flex than the other one there because it is a bit thinner. This is only about 1/2 inch wide, but, it's still not that flexible. So the purpose of the busk is to keep the front of the corset nice and flat. Also, it's to do it up so that we can do up our own corsets. So if you look from the side at my corset, sorry, I'll try to move back here, you can see that there is a very slight bend to it. It looks more exaggerated because of the black panels here, but that's actually going into the waist, but it is flat down the front. So it's holding in my tummy and giving me a nice silhouette. So then the next part we are going to look at, and I just have 1,000,001 corsets laying around here that I'm going to show you guys. The next part we're going to look at is our lacing panel. So you can see on this short little corset, and it is all laced up, this is our lacing panel. So there's a couple of things that we want to look at here. First, we want to look at our grommets. So grommets need to be double-sided. There are ones that you can buy, and sometimes you'll see them in like cheap clothing where there's lacing or anything, but they'll only be one-sided. So it should be, we can see here, that is the front, that is the outside part of the corset. And then here, you can see this is the underside, the inside of the corset, and you can see it's like a little ring within a ring, and that is a double-sided. I'm going to hide my face so it'll focus on the corset, but that is a double-sided grommet. So that is what you're looking for on a lacing panel. Now, they don't have to be equally spaced. Often, what a corset maker will do is have them spaced at the top and the bottom, a little further apart, and then in the middle, where there is the most tension on the laces and the most tension on the corset itself, they will, you know, put the grommets closer together. No, this one is equally distant. Strangely, the cheap corset that I have here, they have kind of done that, where the bunny ears here are closer together. So this is the point in the corset that theoretically would have the most stress on it, not so much on this one because this is a cheap corset. But don't worry if you see something like this where the grommets are a little closer together. That is totally normal. Now, when it comes to the lacing panel, let me get my little one here. Basically, it should also have two of these guys. These are flat steel bones, okay? So very much like the busk, they are quite stiff and they're not easily bent. They have a little bit of flexibility to them, but not a lot. And my rubber ends are not the best. We'll talk about those as well. But basically, these bones go on either side of the grommets. And this is what holds them in place and makes sure that they don't get pulled out of the fabric or have too much pressure put on them. And it basically just holds them straight up and down. Now, you will see sometimes with cheap corsets, let me get my cheap guy out here again, when they get laced up, they may end up kind of bowed in the middle. And that's partially because the corset doesn't fit the person. It's their body is too curvy for the corset, but also because those flat steels are cheaply made. So as we can see here, I can fold this in half as well. I should not be able to do this with a good corset. So just, you know, if you are buying in person in a store, you know, test the flexibility of the front busk and the lacing panel. Both of those should be very stiff so that it keeps everything up and down and, you know, pulled in. If you don't have like proper bones in those places, the corset will bow out. So if my busk is not a good quality busk, it's going to, you know, stick straight out at the bottom, or it could sort of bow out in the middle. It really depends on how my body is and how the corset is made. But usually what you'll end up seeing is, oh, sorry, all caught up there. So usually what you will end up seeing is a corset that sticks out at the bottom. So where the little belly pooch is, it kind of sticks out. Oh, I had that upside down. So there. So it would kind of do one of these guys, right? So we don't want that because it's just going to look kind of ridiculous. So you do need to make sure that you have good quality busk and good quality flat steels around your lacing panel. So the other thing that gives our corsets their shape and strength are these guys. These are spiral steel bones, and you can see where they get their name. They are basically a bunch of little rings that are kind of flattened together, and they form a bone. And you can see here there is a little metal cap on either end, and that's so that it doesn't you know, tear into the fabric of your corset at the top here. So like this kind of a bone would go on this panel. So these guys are important because they are strong, but they are flexible. And this is where we want flexibility. But they are not only flexible this way, they're also flexible this way. So this is what makes them so perfect for corset making. Spiral steels are very, very important. Do not buy corsets with plastic boning. It tends to, instead of where this will bend, plastic boning will buckle. So you don't want that. But this provides strength and structure to the corset. So you can see where we've got, you know, these really dramatic kind of curves on this particular corset. These spiral steels are what are going to allow it to do that, but still maintain the strength. Now, an optional piece of a corset is a modesty panel. So, and just for the record, guys, I am showing you an Orchard corset. Corset here. This one is from Orchard, and I'll give you the names of the other ones that I'm showing. But this is a modesty panel. They have it sewn in, and it just kind of goes across where the lacing is. So you can have these. Sometimes they will be stiffened, so they may have, you know, a bone or something in them. They may just have like some interfacing to make it a little stiffer. I believe that this just has a bit of interfacing in it. And that's just an iron-in thing to stiffen fabric. So it may have that. Sometimes modesty panels will be what are known as floating. So it will be separate from the corset itself and have some holes for grommets, and the laces will go through the modesty panel. I don't have a corset with a floating modesty panel, so I don't have one to show you guys, but you can easily Google it and take a look. In fact, I will put a picture in right now so you can take a look at a floating modesty panel. And so on this one, this one is from Restyle, but you can see here they also have just an attached modesty panel, and this isn't stiffened or anything at all. But it just kind of goes across. And most modesty panels are going to be about 4 to 6 inches in width. Surprise, surprise. The cheap corset has no modesty panel. Now, I mean, it's not a necessary thing for a corset, but it is something that you probably will want. So I'm going to do a whole video about laces because they're a thing in and of themselves, and there's a lot to it. But basically, my preference for laces are polyester, first of all. It's really important in a corset that your inner layer at least be a natural fabric, so like a cotton. But laces, polyester is stronger, right? So it's going to be a lot tougher than if you had cotton or anything like that. So this is just a flat braided, let's see if it'll focus here, a flat braided, there we go, polyester. You can use different materials. I don't like rounded material for laces, so whether it's polyester or whatever, rounded stuff, it just slips through the grommets too easily and makes it difficult to tie up your own corset. You can use ribbon if you choose. I don't have my corset laced with ribbon here. I will go get some ribbon to show you, but basically you need a double-faced satin ribbon if you are going to use ribbon. So I will grab that and show you now. Okay, and here I am with my big bag of various laces. So, double-faced satin ribbon, for those of you who are not sewers, simply means that our ribbon is going to look the same on both sides. So basically our ribbon looks the same on each side. Sometimes you'll buy ribbon and it'll look different on one side versus the other. That's called single-faced ribbon. So double-faced satin ribbon, it's a little harder to find. You do have to go to the, the sewing store and take a look for it. It may be hidden, it may be in with the other ribbons, and it may be a little harder to find. So But that's what you need if you want to put ribbon in your corset. And in my baggie, I have a round polyester cord. So this again, I find to not be very good because it just is too slippery through the lacing grommets. Also, I find cotton has a lot of stretch to it. Polyester will have some stretch, but hopefully not too much. And stretch, when it comes to the lacing, is like the last thing that you want. So your laces also need to be long enough in order to get the corset all the way open so that you can open the busk without there being any tension on the busk. If you're going for a dramatic reduction in your waist size, your laces are going to have to be extra long. If you are only going for probably like say a 2-inch reduction, then you can get away with laces that are much shorter. But basically the laces need to be long enough so that you can open the back of the corset and there is no tension on the busk when you are doing it up or undoing it. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is our waist tape. Is basically it runs through the center of the corset where your waist is supposed to go. This one is an exposed waist tape, and you can see that it's not sewn down, just sewn into the various panels. So I can still stick my finger underneath there if I want, but this just adds that little extra strength for the part of the corset that is going to have the most tension placed on it. Waist tape should be at least 1 inch wide. Wider is, in some cases better. I mean, obviously if it gets too wide, then that's no good. But between 1 inch and 1.5 inches is kind of ideal. It should be, go from the front panel to the back panel. You don't really want something that's just between the center ones. And I'm also going to show you, usually it's made of like a twill tape, if you're just wondering what they are generally made of. So this one here, it has the waist tape sewn directly onto, there's no gaps there. So I've never seen this in a quality corset, so I don't know if this is really any good or if it's just... it's probably providing some reinforcement, but this is not a corset that you need a lot of reinforcement on because it's not a corset that is going to give you any kind of real reduction. And for the record, I haven't, shown the name on this one. I don't really want to name and shame because that's just kind of a shitty thing to do. But I am having a lot of fun beating the hell out of it and telling you guys how crafty it is. So there is that. So also you can get waist tapes that are hidden, or what's known as an internal waist tape. So basically the waist tape will just be sandwiched between the strength layer and the fabric, fashion fabric. So you won't be able to see it necessarily, but you can usually, by looking at the outside of the corset, you can see where the waist tape is, and you will be able to feel it as well. There we go. You'll be able to feel it as well if you just kind of run your hands over it. So next up, we want to talk about our panels and our layers. So every good corset needs a strength layer. Now the strength layer usually is cotton, but it should be it could be another non-stretch natural material, so it should be breathable and natural. Sometimes our strength layer can be hidden if there's multiple layers. There may be a lining layer and then your strength layer and then your fabric, fashion fabric. But generally you will end up with stuff like this where we will see the strength layer on the inside. So basically as long as it doesn't stretch, that is the most important thing. But you basically want to make sure that you've got a good strength layer. So this could be cotton, twill, it could be coutil, any number of different fabrics as long as it's non-stretch and natural. Of course, your fashion fabric, so that's on the outside. It could be any material whatsoever. This is just a black satin. The one that I'm wearing here is black satin with a purple brocade fabric. This corset here is a 1-layer corset, so the strength layer is also the fashion fabric, and it's just a cotton twill. So it just looks nice. It's a flat sort of look, and you can see that the bone casings here are done in a pleather type thing, so that sort of gives the corset a nicer look. And finally, one part of the corset that is totally optional, and you can see that I have laced this one with double-faced satin ribbon. It's weird because it looks really blue on the monitor here, but it's actually a very vibrant purple, like the same color as the brocade here. But this corset has what are known as hip ties. So you can see here, it's just some grommets basically placed on the hip, and then we can loosen that, tighten it, whatever we need. So the purpose for this is that this particular corset fit me well in the ribs. It had the reduction that I wanted in the waist, but my hips are really generous, as you saw from our measuring video. So I needed more space in the ribs, or in the hips rather. So this is a way of getting more space for your hips. Now you can either install this yourself if you are interested in learning how to make one of these yourself. You can check out Lucy Corsetry. She's got a great video on how to install both hip gores and hip ties. So a gore would be the same type of thing, but just no lacing, just a piece of fabric in there. And I've done that to my own corsets before on her instruction. The other thing is you can, instead of, if you needed more room in the ribs versus the hips, you could do rib ties. So you would have a little bit of lacing up at the top of the corset. So this is just one of those things that allows for people who make basically like off-the-rack standard sizes to give a little more versatility to their customers. So this one is from Orchard Corset, and it is based on the design from Lucy's Corsetry. So again, she is a fabulous person. She is very knowledgeable about corsets, and I can show you here. You can see the double labels, Orchard Corset there, and then Lucy's brand here, and this is her logo. So it is a good way to get a little more steam out of your corset if that's what you need. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you've learned a little something about all of these wonderful parts of a corset and what to look for in a quality corset. So like I said, in the next video about corsets that we do, we are going to be talking about how to buy a quality corset both in person and online. So definitely stick around for that. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to my channel, turn on your notifications, and that way you'll know when the next corset video is posted. So thank you very much, and I will see you guys in the next video.